Sometimes a game comes with a reputation, and before I play it, I have to take the time to expunge those views from my thought box and allow me to take a good, clean run at it. A fair crack of the whip, one might say. Sometimes that particular game is a licensed game and it's attached to a property you had a lot of fondness for growing up. We are, of course, talking about David Jason's greatest achievement, Count Duckula. Now, for the 4 Americans and 1 Brazilian that stumbled across this video, let me just give you a brief rundown of what this show actually was. Created by Cosgrove Hall Productions, who generated a whole host of relatively cheaply animated but gorgeous looking cartoons, excellently voiced by British television's greatest peoples, including Danger Mouse.
Good grief. Right, Penfield, will you kindly stop?
Charlton and the Wheelies.
About time to do the lot.
There's a lot of drugs that float around in there.
And today's topic, Count Duckula.
Oh, that's better.
I'm not sure what it was in particular that drew me toward Count Duckula over the others, but the series ran for a solid 6 years from 1988 to 1993 and featured a vampire duck who, thanks to a botched reincarnation, was also a vegetarian, so would only eat ketchup instead of blood, specifically because Nanny, a giant hollering monster duck nurse, fed him the wrong bottle.
Blood. I'll get it.
Also, Igor's there. Episodes generally revolved around travelling to various places in the castle while Count Duckula tried to become famous and avoid Dr. Von Goosewing, the vampire hunter. I know the Americans are sitting here right now thinking, this sounds shit. I prefer Darkwing Duck, but you're wrong, because Count Duckula was voiced by Del Boy, so shut up.
You dozy little twonk, Rodney.
There was, of course, an array of merch, including a comic series, but most importantly of all, there were games, 2 of which arrived on the ZX Spectrum. The first is just a largely bland, monochromatic arcade adventure where you wander around and pick up keys and open doors and, for the most part, inoffensively bore yourself until you just don't want to play it again. The sequel, however, the sequel was put to me as simply one of the worst games to ever be sold on tape, and I didn't just want to walk into the game with that concept in my head. I wanted to give this a fair trial, not ram a stake through its code before it's climbed out of its coffin. Anyway, long story short, it's really shit. So let's talk about that, shall we?
If I see something with any male or female, usually it's the females, I must admit, that I will pass a comment.
Count Dracula.
I mean, you daren't bend down if I'm in the show.
Your first warning after loading up the game that this is going to be a big bag of carrots is the completely deafening silence.
Why are you so quiet?
Not a single noise. It's not like Count Duckula didn't have an iconic theme tune, right?
If you're looking for some fun, you can always count upon the one they call
Duckula.
Well, at least they just put the original theme tune on the cassette tape so you can play it yourself. I suppose that's something. The complete lack of noise extends further. The entire game is silent. There's no music, no sound effects, not even an annoying beep every time you jump. Just nothing. A complete lack of anything. An absolute absence of giving a fuck. Once the game itself begins, you'll notice that absence of giving a fuck seems to have continued onwards into the graphics. Say all you will about the original Count Duckula game, but at least it had some sort of cohesive art design. The sequel, however, you may initially be confused by the random basic platform blocks, the small child, the jack-in-a-box, and the wounded corpse sat in the corner, but this whole game is based on one single episode of the TV series. That episode being The Vampire Strikes Back. To summarise that episode, Count Duckula is collecting cereal boxes to win a replica helmet of his favourite comic book superhero, Tremendous Terrence. Baron von Goosewing, the vampire hunter, explodes the castle, sending it into space. After a spot of trouble with an asteroid field, which Nanny manages to stop by simply floating towards it, Duckula spends the rest of the episode using his comic book as a guide for what to do next. With that in mind, as the basic plot, you may be wondering just how this compares to this. And it's fair to be confused by that. Why would you take a Count Duckula game based on an episode of the show set in space and then give us this vomit-soaked visual mess. What the hell has this got to do with space? Well, you apparently just haven't watched enough of that episode yet. You need to skip 15 minutes into this 20-minute episode to find the inspiration. Count Duckula crash lands on the planet Cute, where he finds that he doesn't quite like cute things at all. And then they leave. They are literally on planet Cute for less than 5 minutes. So part of me feels like there's a decent portion of cynicism at play already in this Count Duckula game that doesn't even look like it should be a Count Duckula game. When 50% of a single episode is set in space, but you decide to focus on the 10% that's set on the planet Cute. That's an extremely laser focus when you consider there are 65 episodes of the show, 65 episodes at 20 minutes apiece, and you focus on 4 minutes of one particular episode. Why? Well, to my mind, it's probably a lot easier to draw cutesy looking dolls and teddy bears and jack-in-a-boxes, which didn't even feature in the episode anyway, and have the game all bright and cheerful looking rather than, say, the gothic architecture that fills the rest of this long-standing series. And even beyond that, it doesn't even particularly get the basics right. Count Duckula was a vegetarian, and even all these years later, I seem to remember him being obsessed with carrots? Though don't quote me on that because I haven't seen the show properly in over 20 years. But you can't really do carrots while lacking the colour orange on the ZX Spectrum. So instead, we get corn, so poorly drawn that they literally had to write corn on it.
I mean, then look at this then. I can't imagine a more beautiful thing.
Onto the game itself and how it plays. It's a platform game, but it's a platform game that feels as clockwork as the toys you're supposedly here to avoid. Each level is filled with platforms that appear and disappear at specific and extremely slow intervals. And all you have to really do on each screen is follow their path silently. On the second screen, it took me a few attempts to realize that fall damage was at play here. I'd initially assumed I was hitting the enemies as I jumped down, but no, you have to follow the platforms. That's the basis for every single level. Follow the platforms. There is no deviation from this. With a game based on nothing but jumping on said platforms, you'd expect that they at least got the platform jumping perfect, but no. The collision detection means you'll also be jumping through platforms and losing a life. Don't pretend to be shocked. Touching back on the set dressing here for a moment, I love how they had no idea what to do to decorate these levels, even though they could have literally taken the show as inspiration. We have these toy soldiers that look like they're holding their breath. A car. Cars are cute, right? What's not cute about a car? We Want You recruitment poster featuring a small girl. I mean, is that not cute? Conscription's cute, right? How about these skeletons in a castle just for reasons? Maybe they just remembered they're making a Count Duckula game at this point and added them in. Oh look, another one! This time featuring the decaying corpse of Dennis the Menace for some reason. You're actually lucky to get any of this set dressing at all because most of the levels look like this. Just an empty void with blocks and platforms. The only visual excitement here being these three portraits of Count Duckula, Igor and Nanny, which does beg the question, why are these portraits here? Do we get to meet the characters in-game? Well, you're in luck, because there's Igor! Oh good, finally, something new, something that actually resembles the show, something that isn't just a half-baked idea slapped onto a shoddy platformer. Now all I have to do is wait for the platforms I need. Shouldn't take too long, just got to wait for the right timing. Oh, fuck that one. Right, okay, it's cool, let's go again, it's fine, just can't wait to get to Igor. Just gotta get over these platforms and okay, now, Igor! Fun. What about Nanny then? Do we get to see Nanny? No, they didn't bother with that. You get to see Igor once, and you can't even bear to look at you. Just filled with shame, this lad. The game is horrible, as you'll no doubt have gathered by now, but I don't think I've truly hammered home just how boring it is on top of being horrible. This section here being a perfect example. I'm here waiting for platforms to appear that will get me from one area to the next. I'm just gonna let this play out in full so you can truly appreciate how it feels to play through this entire game. By the final screen, they've just given up on any sort of challenge whatsoever. I'm not sure what the thought process behind these level designs were, but the fact the creators aren't even listed by name on the Spectrum Computing site probably goes some way towards showing how little the developers wanted to claim this mess. And here's your reward for putting up with all of it. Thanks. You'll be pleased to know that your Sinclair were wise enough to slap a score of 9% on this train wreck, because bear in mind, this was released in 1992, the same year as Sonic the Hedgehog 2. And while you could effectively buy 15 copies of Count Duckula 2 for the same price, do I really need to spell it out? Do I need to clarify which of these anthropomorphized animal platform games wasn't worth buying 15 copies of? Sinclair User Magazine were the only other publication to run a review of this, and shockingly, they gave the game 64%. 64% for what? Better check the summary. Not the worst platformer I've seen, but certainly not the best. If you like silent, slow, basic, dated, unresponsive, annoying games, get it. It's not completely bad though. There's a few nice and funny touches, however far and few between. I believe Mark here may be suffering from emotional whiplash on that one, especially after giving the game 35 out of 100 for sound. Considering it's fucking silent, you daft twat. The entire review is like this, by the by. He continuously struggles to say anything nice about the game while also trying to come to the conclusion that it's actually worth your time. And I'm not entirely sure whether they'd received a bung or they were just desperately trying to keep the Spectrum alive while the 16-bit consoles came knocking at the doors. Either way, they're wrong. And this game is wrong, and everyone who made it is wrong. And I'm wrong for playing it. So that's that. A terrible game based on a tiny portion of a single episode of a long-standing series that can barely even keep that aesthetic running to begin with. Even the front cover looks absolutely nothing like the game on the tape, with an image of Count Duckula stood next to his hero, Tremendous Terrence, Nanny holding a TV with Tremendous Terrence on it, and featuring Tremendous Terrence? Where on earth was Tremendous Terrence in all of this? Okay, controls. Down and fire calls Tremendous Terrence. Okay, well, I've got to see this. Hi everyone, my name's Dave and I'm the CEO of Rose Tinted Spectrum. Now look, I just want to come here to say that sometimes people make mistakes and it's not fair to always judge the person that you see on the screen who isn't me. I'm different to the guy that you've just been watching. Anyway, Rose Tinted Spectrum noticed something toward the end of his review there. It was this line of dialogue from the instructions. Please forgive me, I know not what I do. Now, a Rose Tinted Spectrum, who isn't me, he went back and checked and realized that the tap file that he was using did say 128K, but unfortunately it was a lie. It was a truly terrible, awful, significant lie. And so we sit here today and we look back at that video and we think about poor Mark and the slights against him when he gave the game a 35 for sound. Going back and checking the 128K version of the game, there is in fact a theme tune. We can only apologize for Rose Tinted Spectrum's mistake. The rest of the sounds in the game involve this noise. There is also a section set in space which doesn't really have much consequence to the rest of the game, and also the change one enemy, and also the ending is slightly different. But we take all of that into account, I think we all have to agree the game is still fucking shit.